Welcome to the final seminar in our seminar series, and this seminar corresponds with the last chapter in the book, which is a fairly short chapter and really focuses on taking some of the key concepts out of the book and helping you get started to living life on your terms by becoming an entrepreneur. So we're going to drive home a few very important points and also elaborate on a few more topics from that final chapter. My name is Chris Lopez. I'm one of the authors of the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur book, and Jason Wells is also on the seminar with me, and he's the other co-author of the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur book. And when we set out to write the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur book, our goal was to write something that was nuts and bolts and detail-oriented, and not just a bunch of fluff or pie-in-the-sky stuff, which so many entrepreneurial books and business books tend to be. There's like, well, go out there and do it, but they don't really go into any specifics. And the majority of the book, really the first 11 chapters, are all that nuts and bolts on lessons we've learned, things we've done, what we've seen work for us, what we've seen other successful people do. We really tried to identify what, if we had to start over again, but we had all the knowledge we had, what we would do moving forward. And so that's what we wanted to put in the book. Now, this last chapter is all about getting out there and doing it, because it doesn't matter if you have all the knowledge in the world. You're not going to live life on your terms if you don't go out there and take some action. And that's why the chapter is titled Living Life on Your Terms is a Choice. We start off this book talking about having first world problems. If you're watching the seminar on your iPhone or iPad or your laptop or computer, you've got your basic necessities met. You've got food, you've got water, you've got shelter. You live a pretty good life compared to other people out there in the world. And that's why we say it's a choice, because you've got the basic things to survive met. So moving forward to becoming an entrepreneur and living life on your terms is going to require you to focus, make some sacrifice, and put a lot of work into it. And the biggest factor that ultimately determines someone becoming successful or not is not the knowledge, but it's them going out there and committing to it and taking action and doing it. And before we jump into some topics on here, I want to remind you that there is never a perfect time to start a business. There's never a perfect time to start chasing your dream of living life on your terms. You're never going to have all the lights be green for you, or all the stars are never going to line up for you. But you just have to go out there and start doing something. So Jason, I'll let you talk on this next slide, or anything about the subject. But one of the big themes we had throughout the book was going out there and developing money-making skills.
Yeah, well, in chapter 12 and here we are, I don't want to call it a review because it's not. It's just a reminder that as you read the book, pulling it all together, what are the most important things that you need moving forward, even making the choice on, okay, what do I need to be doing right now to take a step forward towards living life on my terms? Like you're asking that question. And money-making skills is one of the things you need to be focused on. We talk about communication and utilizing the internet and earlier on in the book. And these are things that need to be in your next project, even if that project is a stepping stone to something bigger or something else, or part of your overall portfolio you develop when you look ahead the next 10 or 20 years. It's got to have money-making skills, because if you don't do something at least to learn money-making skills, which is the most important one, is communication, and we've talked about this, and we've touched on this over and over and over again throughout this seminar series, and internet skills, and really understanding how the internet works, because the new advertising world is going more and more towards the internet, and it's really allowing the little guy to make headway into advertising, because you can very finely target and focus your money on certain niches in certain areas. So it's opened the playing field a bit. But as time has wore on, that playing field has been leveled with the big companies, but then it's going the other direction, mainly because people don't have the right money-making skills and they don't know how to utilize the internet. So it's swinging back the other way, because now that this has been around a while, it's getting complicated. So I bring this up to go back to the point that if you're not learning what's going on and you're not staying on top of that money-making skill, such as the internet and advertising and where things are going and how you can make money on the internet, and if you don't have those communication skills, none of this will matter, because lack of communication skills will affect everything that you do. So we talk about all this in the book, but it's important mentioning, now that you've been through the whole seminar series, we've assumed you've read the book. If you haven't, you need to go buy it and you need to read it. When you're at this point, we need to remind you that what you need to be, you've got all this information, you can go back and refer to it, you've done all the homework in the book. One of the things you need to remember is money-making skills is something you need to have in the forefront of your mind as you're doing things and as you're moving forward. You need to be asking yourself on a weekly basis, what am I learning as opposed to how much money am I making? Because I think people get fixated on how much money they're making up front, and you just started becoming an entrepreneur. Don't expect to make money right away, but what you do need to be doing is growing as a person, and part of that growth is money-making skills, because with money-making skills will come money, hence the term money-making skills.
And something I really want to drive home before we move on is that, just as you said, Jason, skills come first, results come second. If you remember one thing from this seminar, it's that phrase, skills come first, results come second. And I've had a few people I've been mentoring lately, helping them get their business going, and they've got some clients, they've got some customers, and a very common obstacle and issue is that people aren't organized. I say, well, you need to use a contact management system, or CRM system, customer relationship management software, to stay on top of your customers, your current ones, your potential ones, that people come through, websites, referrals, is that you need to do it. And a lot of times people will say, well, I've only got 10 people right now, I don't need a contact manager. And I say, that's the wrong attitude. I said, you don't get 1,000 customers, then you get a process in place and a contact management in place. It doesn't work that way. You do the habit of using a system. You do the habit of using a contact manager. You develop that skill of learning how to use it. You do that, and then when you have a big influx of customers or referrals or people or orders coming off your website, then you're prepared to handle it. And that's when you can make that big transition from, hey, I'm making a few $100s to $1,000 or $2,000 a month on my side business, to all of a sudden you can handle an influx, and now you're making an income where you can live full-time off of it. But you have that habit in place first, and in this case, you have that money-making skill learned and fine-tuned first before the results will follow. And another just really important aspect is finding a vested mentor. Now, Jason and I get asked a lot, by people, what should I do? Where should I start? And we somewhat joke, but we're also serious of, well, hey, if you've got a rich uncle who's a real estate mogul, or who's, you know, a superstar at day trading on the stock market, hey, go learn from him. Go move into his apartment, clean his house, get his coffee, and learn what he does. Do what you need to do to be around someone like that. But most of us don't have that successful uncle or whatever, that close family member where they can take us under their wing. And that's where you really need to keep this concept of a vested mentor in mind. Especially, this is so much more important than just a teaching style mentor and a consultant mentor, because these people have that vested interest to go the extra mile with you, to spend some time, to commit mental energy to you, and not just do a little bit, then go back to their own business or their own projects. And Jason, I know you wrote a good portion of that chapter. Uh, what are your How important is a vested mentor from your point of view?
I don't want to say that you won't make it without it, but it's pretty close to that statement. Because even if it's not knowing what to do, I think somebody that's tenacious enough can find the answers. In a lot of ways, that was us. But I can say that if I didn't have a mentor, especially a vested mentor, I'm not sure when I hit those roadblocks where, you know, things can be difficult sometimes. And sometimes you just need somebody to, I don't want to say cheer you on, but you need somebody to remind you why you're doing what you're doing when the going gets rough. So I don't want to say that if you don't have one, you won't make it, because I just think, you know, there's always an exception to a rule, and there's always that person that's tenacious enough that will figure it out. But most of us need somebody to show us how to do it, somebody to remind us when things are getting rough as to why we're doing what we're doing, and then, which can be any type of a mentor. And if you don't know the different types of mentors, you need to go back and read that chapter in the book. But the vested mentor, the reason why that is such a unique situation is you've got a mentor who has a vested interest in you, meaning they're going to make money financially off of your success. And so you want to set up a relationship like that where there is that connection, if you will, in that sense. And, you know, the name of this chapter was The Vague Recommendation. And the reason why I actually came up with that title for that chapter was because, thinking back, I remember when I started out on this journey, I remember I kept reading books and they kept saying, get a mentor, get a mentor, get a mentor. But it was like, okay, well, duh. Like, I know I need to work with somebody who knows more about something than I do. But it was always just like, get a mentor, which was vague to me because, you know, there's this questions, well, you know, where do you find a mentor? You know, how do you even go about doing that? What, you know, how does it work? And so that chapter in the book really goes into a good detail of what we have identified as different types of mentors. And I don't know, not to say that we've read every entrepreneurship or business book, but I have never heard anyone explaining mentors in the sense that where we broke it down of the different types of mentors, what they do, how they all have their purpose, and how they fit into somebody's goal of living life on their terms. And so this is something you need to have. You know, you can have all three types of mentors, but ultimately the vested mentor is the one that really solves a lot of the problems that are created by the other types of mentors. And so a vested mentor is the most ideal situation, and that's what you should be looking for.
And another critical component is being a part of a community, an entrepreneurial focused community. Now, there's tons of communities out there for entrepreneurial focused. Some are good, some are bad, and there's a lot of good ones out there, a lot of great ones, and some you will mesh with, some you won't. So don't feel like, wow, just because that's a great community, you have to, if you're not part of that, you're not going to have success. Um, a big part is, yes, being with people who are out there achieving goals and wanting more out of life, but also making sure that you do resonate with the people who are in that community. In the book, Jason and I talk about the positivity Kool-Aid, and just there's a lot of people out there where they kind of put blinders on to reality, and everything's great and everything's wonderful and everything's amazing, which it's good to have the positive attitude, but they're not looking at reality. And hey, they're good people. A lot of them accomplish things, but that type of pie in the sky mentality, it drives us nuts, and we just simply, we're not going to mesh well with community, and vice versa. So, is our community better than theirs? That's a lot in the eye of the beholder. So to us, absolutely it is, because it works for us and we have success with it, and it works for other people or it resonates with. But for other people who are not going to resonate with our style, hey, it's not a good fit for them. That's fine. So keep that in mind as you do get plugged into at least one community. Ideally, you're going to be plugged into a couple communities. But these are just so important because you're just around other people, and you get that synergy and an energy that happens when you have people working towards a common goal, sharing ideas. You'll learn from other people. You'll get motivated by other people. You'll have friendly competitions, and this will do a lot to help you living life on your terms.
Something that I think is missed in business is just this concept. And I know we talked about this during the week that we covered community, but again, touching on the things that you need to be really putting your mind on right now: money-making skills, finding a vested mentor, and a community. At the end of the day, if you got people doing the things that you're doing, you're just going to have more energy. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what personality type you are, which we talk about in the chapter. We talk about communication earlier on in the book. We talk about some of the personality types. I just think that, even if you're the most introverted person, if you get around people that are like-minded, that are working towards the same thing, there's going to be a time when it's going to help you. And it certainly helped Chris and I. And notice that, we're covering a few of the areas that we feel are so important, and it doesn't mean the other areas that we cover in the book aren't important, but these are the things that I think if you had to pick 3 things in the book, and if somebody told you got to take just 3 concepts, and that's it, it's all you can have, these would be the ones that I would choose as far as bare bones from the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur book. Would be the money-making skills, the vested mentor, and the community, because these are kind of the glue that hold everything together. And definitely a community that's definitely glue when it comes to living life on your terms, because like the mentor, the community is going to be the thing that keeps you moving forward when you run into those rough patches that we all do when we're doing anything in life.
Taking action, I kind of touched on this at the beginning of the seminar of just, a common thing that every successful person has, especially the people who switch from, being an employee or working for someone to becoming an entrepreneur, is that they took action and they took calculated risk. So We want to balance out all the first, 11 chapters in this book where we gave you good knowledge, we gave you good concepts, we gave you some good nuts and bolts stuff with this final chapter of go out there and do something, because you will never accomplish living life on your terms if you don't go out there and take action. If you don't go out there and zigzag your way forward, as we talked about in the goal setting chapter. So I talked enough about taking action between this and the first few minutes, Jason. I'll let you speak on this.
Well, I'd say this is the number one reason why people don't get to where they want to go. It's a constant problem. I don't know why people sometimes get stuck on this. And, as a mentor, it's very easy for me to say, oh, people are just lazy. And the thing that separates entrepreneurs from workers is that the entrepreneurs aren't lazy and the workers are. But that's really, it's true, but to use that and paint that with a broad brush, that is really irresponsible for a mentor to do. Somebody in our position, it's simply not the case. I think there's a lot of reason why people don't take action. Some of it, I said this can be laziness. A lot of times it's fear. There's something holding you back. There's the need to feel like you have to know everything, which you touched on briefly with all the great content in the book, and maybe somebody could say, oh, I need to study this until I know everything in here before I move forward. But one of the things that I think I can say so you just don't make this mistake of sitting around and after looking back after you realizing you really haven't taken any action, the way to avoid that is to know this. There's no possible way that you're going to make money as an entrepreneur unless you take action. You're never going to get over the fear until you take action. You got to do it. And then what is to really be afraid of? And finally, you're not going to ever learn the concepts until you do it. And everyone always says, well, you can't really learn something unless you're on the job doing it. And there's a lot of truth to that. So you can study till the cows come home, but if you don't go out and apply what you've learned, you fall into that same old thing where people say, well, that person just went to college, but they've never worked in the real world in the area that they've studied in. And it's one of my issues with, I went to law school and I looked around with all these people that were going to law school and saying how right when they got out of law school they were going to go start a law firm. And I would just chuckle to myself because I knew what it took to run a law firm. There's no way you're going to start a law firm. Well, if I say that to you, you're probably nodding in agreement because you're like, well, yeah. You can't just study something and expect to go out and do it. You got to have somebody show you how to do it, and you got to go do it before you can really learn or know what you don't know. Yet, we get in these situations and people do it all the time. And so, nothing I'm saying here is a newsflash. You could be sitting there going, I know this. Okay, so you know it. So what do you need to do? You need to take action. And just remember that when things aren't going well and you're having a rough week or things aren't working, really stop, look back at your past week or two or month, and really, how much action have you really taken? Because usually, when things aren't going well, it's because you haven't really taken a whole lot of action. And that's always been my guide over the years.
So a very common question we get asked from people who read the book and people we just, meet and develop relationships with is people want to know, hey guys, what exactly did you do to get started? and ultimately live life on your terms. So we have a video describing what we did. We call it the How We Started video, and you can view it at antisuitentrepreneur.com/how we started. Now, we didn't put the specifics on what we did in the book because, this is not the way we got started is not the only way out there in the world that will allow you to live life on your terms. There's different ways different things you can do and different ways you can go about doing it to become an entrepreneur and live life on your terms. So we wanted to keep the concepts and what we did specifically separate. But if you're one of those people that's curious to know exactly what we did, go there. antisuitentrepreneur.com/how we started. It's I think it's like an 8 or 9 minute video, so it's fairly short. It's to the point, and it tells you what we did. And we recorded this video about 6 months ago, and we both started doing this 10 to 12 years ago at this point. And if we had to go back and do things again, we would go down the same route that we did 10, 11, 12 years ago. So I tell you that because, there are certain times when you read something or you learn from someone where, yeah, what they did was wonderful, but now it's outdated, or now kind of the trends have changed, or that window of opportunity has gone by. Well, that's not the case now. I mean, what we did to get started is still a great way to help you start living life on your terms. Is it guaranteed to get you there? No, there are no guarantees in life. Is it going to be the thing that makes you a great income and allows you to become a full-time entrepreneur? Maybe, maybe not. But you do that, it gets you taking action. And it can be a major stepping stone or the first stepping stone to you living life on your terms. Because if Jason and I did not do this and go down this route, we would not have developed a lot of the money-making skills we have now. We wouldn't have developed a lot of technology we have now, which has allowed us to leverage ourselves and create very good diversified cash flow. So Jason, that's everything I wanted to say. I'll let you share your comments about the How We Started video.
Well, the only thing I'll close with is the reason why we made this video was people ask us all the time, well, how did you get your start? And so we talk about that. And then the one point I want to make is that all those things that we talked about tonight, having money-making skills, a vested mentor and community, you can learn money-making skills, as Chris said. You'll have a vested mentor, and there's a community, and it's built right into this. So we were both lucky that we just ran across this. Like you go over 10 years ago, it's not like we knew all of this now, but looking back, we determined the things that helped us the most, and we realized, wow, that first business we did, how we got started, it had all those things. No wonder we got to where we were at now. And so that's the important distinction, is all the things we talked about tonight, it's in there, and we talk about that in the video.
All right, well, that wraps up this seminar. Again, if you're curious to know exactly what Jason and I did, watch the How We Started video, and you can view that at www.antisuitentrepreneur.com/how we started. And of course, if you got any questions on this seminar or other topics from the book, please contact our office. We can't guarantee that we will have the answer for you or even be able to spend the amount of time required to help you out, but we will speak with you. We will do our best to help you out and point you in the right direction.